On the bench today is an alternator. It's the original legacy alternator off of an Aerostar aircraft. And of course you can see you've got the usual belt and pulley arrangement similar to an automotive. This is an external cooling fan. There are no internal cooling fans on this alternator. However, in addition to the external cooling fan, there is a blast tube here where an air duct connects, and this connects to an opening on the front of the cowl to give it some additional cooling air in the back side, and then the external cooling fan helps pull it out, pull the air out. So that's how it gets cooling air on this particular alternator. Looking at this is the pivot point on the mount, and then of course these two ears have something to do with the tension on the belt pulley. Actually, I take that back. There's an idler pulley that's adjustable that adjusts the belt tension. All right, so on the back here, we have this big post here with a plus sign on it is the output for the alternator. And of course, it's grounded to the engine case, so that provides a ground. And then over here, we have a terminal that's labeled aux, and that is to trigger the alternator out light. And then we have two terminals right here, and this is the field coil right here. So typically one of these terminals will be grounded, and the other one will be connected to the voltage regulator, which regulates the amount of field current to control the output voltage. So in this particular case, if you look at this, this is a Lamar voltage regulator. Again, this was the original legacy voltage regulator. It was on the Aerostar. It was later replaced with a plain power voltage regulator and also the alternator. But if you look at the available terminals here on the back of the voltage regulator, we've got our bus connection. So this is where it takes battery bus, or in the case of the Aerostar, it takes it from the output before the isolation diode. But in any event, this is where the voltage regulator gets its power from, is from bus. The field terminal is where it feeds into the terminal right here, the field terminal, and this is where the voltage regulator will regulate how much field current it feeds to the alternator field. Then of course we have our ground here. But what's this terminal here, PAR? Well, this is on a multi-engine aircraft, a twin-engine aircraft, so we actually have two of these, and they both have a pair terminal. So the pair terminals are connected to each other, and then there's a provision for balancing these two so that the output of the two alternators match each other. So that's the idea behind that. In a subsequent video, we'll take one of these apart and see what's inside of it. All right, so how about we take this alternator apart and see what's inside of it? So we will do that now. So we'll take our impact gun here. If I can get the socket on. All right, so let's see, all right, so I'm gonna use an impact wrench to take this nut off on the pulley. Okay, that's the nut off of there. And we got a washer there. Okay, and then this isn't just gonna come off, so let's see here what we can do. We can see if we can rattle this thing loose here with a punch and a hammer. I'm trying to do this with not enough hands, so you'll have to excuse that. There we go. All right, so this came off, and we got our key here, our Woodruff key, and we'll see if we can gently pry this cooling fan off of here. All right, off camera, I removed the Woodruff key here, removed the pulley, and removed the cooling fan, external cooling fan, and got two of the 4 bolts completely removed. We'll remove the last of these two, like so. And then hopefully this will come apart pretty easily. Sometimes it takes a little persuasion. Take our mallet There we go. All right, now you're looking at the inside of this alternator. So here we have the rotor, which spins around, and it's got the field winding that's inside there. You can't see this very well. I would pull this out, but it's kind of pressed into the front bearing. So let me show you another one here. This is off a slightly different model alternator, but it's the same idea. This is the front bearing. This is the slip rings here that you see on the armature, just like you do on this one here. So the brushes, they kind of fell out of their slots there, but these spring-loaded brushes that ride in here, let me see if I can duplicate this here. Oops, that's the wrong way. So these brushes, sometimes I just don't have enough hands to do what I need to do. But these brushes ride like this on the slip rings, and they transfer the electricity from these two terminals to the two slip rings, and that's how the regulator's feeding field current in here. And as you can see, when it does that, there's a winding in here, the field winding. And that field current that the regulator feeds in and energizes this field winding creates a magnetic field as this rotates around. So as that rotates around, creating its electromagnetic field, that magnetic field cuts through this stator winding, this stationary winding here, and generates electricity or output in the stationary winding. Now you notice that there's wires that go from the stationary winding to a bunch of diodes here. There's actually 6 of them, and these diodes are what rectify the alternating current, which comes out of the stator winding, into DC, or direct current. And there's actually 3 phases of wires. There's 3 coils here. And so in generating alternating current, they're slightly out of phase with each other. That's why there's 6 diodes. But it rectifies this 3-phase alternating current into direct current, or DC. So that's how that works. You can see there's a bearing in there, which the shaft here rides on like so. So this is how it creates its power. Now, as far as failure modes of the alternator, you could have an issue with the bearings. You got the rear bearing here, and you got the front bearing here. So that's a possible failure point. We talked about the brushes already. These are high wear items, these carbon brushes. They wear as time goes on, the more hours you have on it. The diodes can fail and create problems, or the windings can overheat. I'll show you, again, this is on a different model alternator, but this rotor, which rides in here, it rotates inside of this coil of wire. You notice how black this stator winding is. That's because this is overheated. So this winding here doesn't look too bad at all. It doesn't look brand new, but it doesn't look so overheated. But that's a possible failure mode if the alternator is being asked to put out more current than its cooling can keep up with. And as a matter of fact, you notice that this alternator doesn't have any internal cooling fans. As we mentioned earlier, it's just got the external cooling fan and the blast tube there. But this is how it works. These are the common failure modes, or failure points, of the alternator. And that's that.